Okay, so this is a brief summary or explanation of what happened in the SIOP third chapter. Um, so this chapter was all about how to utilize students' background knowledge and how to be intentional about language development and learning words and how to really teach English language learners and other students in your class how to comprehend things using what they already know and using new words that they might not already know. And this is done through scaffolding and through specific attention to those students. So this chapter kind of is split up into two parts. One is using a student's schema, which is like past knowledge and experience, past um, things that have happened to them in school, outside of school, and how all that plays a critical role in their current ability to comprehend things and to learn content in the classroom. So it talks a lot about how a student's schema can impact whether or not they can understand the curriculum fully, or if they need some more help. And using that schema actually does help them understand curriculum. The second emphasis of this SIOP chapter was about how teaching words and language is a key part of an English language learner's ability to learn classroom content, and how one of the main things that might prevent them from being able to fully learn content is the lack of words that they know in English. So to start, just the knowledge of background knowledge and schema and how all of those relate to just learning content. It talks about how in effective SIOP lessons, new information is explicitly linked to students' background and their prior understanding, and this kind of relates to the scaffolding needed. So the steps and the maybe extra intervention and materials needed to provide students with access to that grade level content. So in order to be an effective teacher that follows the SIOP model, you have to connect student experience to the text. If that student can't connect their past life to that text, then you can be someone that helps them with that. Develop more background knowledge and just discuss and talk about experience and situations that that student has endured. Teaching key vocabulary, which is another part of that chapter that we'll discuss. Allow the students to use their home language. A lot of times students have background knowledge and schemas that are in Spanish, for example, and not English. And so allowing them to use some Spanish in the classroom, whether it's a dual language class or not, will actually help them to be able to understand content. Teaching from a culturally responsive perspective, so just understanding that not all students will have the same background knowledge and the same schema. Like, for example, if you're talking about, as it says below, like the American Revolution, if a student just immigrated from Puerto Rico or Mexico or whatever country, they might not know anything about that coming in. So their background knowledge isn't maybe the same as other students who have always lived in the US. Also including chapter previews in lessons so that students can kind of develop a little bit of a background knowledge before you actually get into the lesson is helpful. And then finally, SIOP teachers are to fill in gaps for students who have no past schema. So for example, if there's a group of kids that have absolutely no background knowledge or schemas or experiences that can relate to the American Revolution unit, then pulling them aside and helping them to connect some of their life with that would be extremely helpful in their learning of curriculum. So one of the main things, how teachers can connect backgrounds with content and how they can best support, especially English language learners. Obviously, you can use visuals to provide context, chapter previews, allowing students to use their own home language. But one of the main ways that teachers can make explicit links between new learning and previous content and help with experience is with vocabulary development. So this chapter talks a lot about how in SIOP lessons, teachers are to select words that are critical for understanding and provide a variety of ways for students to remember them and learn those words. With English language learners, it can be hard for them to learn content and material if they don't know what any of the words mean, especially in specific class lessons. So, within vocabulary development, as this chapter says, there are 3 different categories for vocabulary, specifically academic vocabulary. A lot of students, if they are English language learners, they can, and more advanced, they know a lot of words that are conversational or that are applicable outside of the classroom. But with the content words, general academic vocab, and word parts, those things are something that often English language learners do not know. So the first category of academic vocabulary is content vocabulary, and these are keywords associated with a particular topic. The one topic being taught. For example, if you're in a reading lesson and you're trying to get them to understand what a setting is, there are some students in the class that maybe don't know what the word setting even means. So then they are unable to comprehend and to show you as a teacher that they know a setting in a story. They might know exactly what the setting in the story is if you explain to them what that word is. They know where this story takes place, they know the location, but they don't know the specific word setting. And so it's important for teachers to convey the importance of knowing these words within their classroom, because if you don't, then it's difficult to understand a certain topic. And it's also important for teachers to work with ELL students, especially with the SIOP model, and so that they can know these words and comprehend the lesson. The next category is general academic vocabulary, and this category involves words that students must know because they are used in academic disciplines. So English language learners often struggle with these words because, for example, on the screen it's table versus data table. Students know what a table is at home. It's like we sit at the table and eat dinner, but in English it's difficult to understand then what a data table is in like a chart in math class, because the word table, they have a schema or past background knowledge about a table that is not the same for this academic discipline. And so teachers need to kind of enforce and teach how these words are different used in different settings. The next category is word parts, and this includes roots and affixes. And this category is especially important for English language learners because it includes teaching students how parts of words can enable them to learn new vocabulary. Especially because ELL students often they can't memorize every word right away, and so if you teach them how to break down words into their parts and teach them certain roots and affixes, then they can better be able to understand a whole bunch of different words that they don't have memorized quite yet. This is like the word photosynthesis. If you can teach them what photo means, then it's easier for them to know what this huge word is. Another model that the SIOP book brought up was the 1, 2, 3 tier method. I think it was created in 2002. And these words, this method kind of answers the question like, what words should teachers be teaching? What do you focus on? How do you scaffold things? And it breaks words into 3 tiers. So, tier 1 are words that are commonly used in conversational speech. These are words that, like mentioned before, English language learners would most likely know already, words that they use in their daily life, simple nouns, high frequency words, verbs, and sight words. And these are words that often don't need to be taught because they already know them. Tier 2 words are those that are found in texts, like readings, but not in general conversation. These are words that students need to know to succeed academically, and they must be explicitly taught to many English language learners. In order for students to be able to comprehend things in school and achieve academically, they need to be explicitly taught what these tier 2 words mean. These could be words like characterization or setting, things that you wouldn't normally just talk about with your family at the dinner table. And then finally, tier 3 words are uncommon words that are not often found in school texts unless for a specific topic, and they're not words that teachers should spend a lot of time teaching. These are words that are extremely complicated and are only specifically for specific like categories of learning. Like for example, in chemistry, you have the word stoichiometry. That's not a word that a teacher should spend that much time teaching because it doesn't relate to anything other than that one chapter in chemistry. And that is just wasting valuable time to really teach students how to read and to listen to words. One final category of just like how to encourage language development and help and work with students in learning words is word consciousness. And this is just the idea that like interest in and awareness of words should be a part of vocabulary instruction, and it should be enjoyable and engaging. Students should enjoy learning new words, and so it can be really frustrating if it is something that is too difficult. And so it's important for SIOP teachers to really encourage English language learners to enjoy learning and to just make learning words super engaging and fun for those people who may struggle with English and struggle with comprehension. So there are 4 key points that I got from the chapter. The first is that students should be active in developing their understanding of words and ways to learn them. And the way that students can be active in developing this understanding is for teachers to guide that. And the SIOP model really encourages that, or it really encourages that students should be active in developing new words and their understanding of them and their comprehension. The second key point is that students should personalize word learning. And this is just using your past schemas and knowledge to just really um, make the way that you learn words really personal and the connections you make to new words really personal. Um, and that is just also culturally responsive. It's like, how can you, as a teacher, a SIOP teacher, um, use this person's past experiences to help them learn new words? And then the third key point is that students should be immersed in words that are rich language environments that focus on words and students learning words. And this is just the idea that like students need to be immersed in the idea of learning new words in environments that are rich in language. Um, these environments in school and classrooms need to be really focused on teaching students new words and teaching them how to learn new words on their own. The fourth key point and final is that students should build on multiple sources of information to learn words through repeated exposure. So just using the models that we talked about before, it's like they need to have content vocabulary, general academic vocabulary, know word parts, 1, 2, 3 tier words, word consciousness. All of those things need to work together um, through repeated exposure. Words need to be repeated over and over and over, and just kids need to be exposed to those words in order to fully grasp the concepts that you're teaching them in class. The whole point behind language development is so that then students can comprehend what you're saying and learn the curriculum, even if um, they don't really speak fluent English. Knowing some of these words will really help them develop their own standards and curriculum. Some ideas for language development are through read alouds, having kids hear what you're saying, pre-tests with partners or individually, word clouds. This is using things like Word Bubble or Wordle, where you just put a whole bunch of words from the text in there. Word sorts, like categorizing words or phrases into groups. Word walls that students can utilize when they're writing. Contextualizing key vocab, so like selecting several key terms that are critical to understanding the lesson and defining them within the context. That really helps them develop a schema. Um, graphic organizers and concept maps, like where the words come into play, how they fall in there, organizing a term and its concepts. Vocabulary games are really critical. Word generation activities, like here's a part, this goes along with the suffixes and affixes. Here's a part of a word, how many words have that part in them? How many can you think of? And there are a ton more activities that you can use that are engaging and fun and really help English language learners grow their vocabulary so that they can better learn the lesson at hand. So as a whole, this chapter chapter 3 discussed how SIOP instruction includes teaching vocabulary in order to increase comprehension of class content, especially for English language